Mark, it's lovely to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Slightly chilly in this office space, but yeah, I've whacked up the heating, so should be okay. Yeah.
Fantastic. So last time you and I were on a podcast, I was your guest on your podcast, in
Mm.
fact, and you brought me to a swanky studio. And here I am. I'm saying we're doing it on video, and you're being very flexible. And in fact, I use Zoom for my podcast, but we'll talk
Uh-huh.
about that a little bit later. Let's talk a little bit about you first, Mark. So
Mhm.
where did your interest in marketing come from? Why did you get into it?
Yeah, it was really music related. So my first job, really, as a Saturday boy, was at Our Price Records, if anyone remembers that. So yeah, so it was great. I was so lucky. I had an interview with Iceland the same day, and I luckily got the Our Price job. And then it was just fascinating to me where a new track would come out, or you knew it was coming out, and then you saw it, the promotion before, you saw it being on radio, you saw it coming in, you saw the pre-promotion, you saw the full marketing cycle all the way through into me, because I was the tall guy, having to change the charts in the window, with all the posters, and then all of a sudden that song was number one, and then all of a sudden that band was playing your hometown, and everyone was wearing T-shirts about that band, and it just came from nowhere. So, it was a slightly different way in, I suppose. But I think I was always aware of brands. I was on a podcast a wee while ago, and I got asked about, the first time I remember seeing brands. And my grandfather had made me a garage when I was a kid. He was a carpenter, but weirdly this was out of metal. But there was loads of Castrol GTX and Gulf and Champion and all these oil brands, BP. And I think that's probably when I first saw brands in any way. But my real love was through music and music marketing. And I was just fascinated, and it seemed like just magic to me. I didn't know how people did it, and I was super curious. So, yeah.
And that's interesting, actually, because I think the music industry in itself has changed so much, hasn't it? And all of the marketing has changed. It's a great industry to follow. And of course, we're in the speaking or meetings and events industry. And speaking follows a lot of the patterns that music has taken. It's fascinating. But you went into food and drink. So you love music and were passionate about it.
Mhm.
How did you end up in food and drink?
Yeah, well, food and drink was very late, actually. So my first job really was music marketing. So I worked with NME, the magazine, and Loaded, and Melody Maker, and Uncut, and all these. And I was a student brand manager, so I did some extra work, and we might come on to entrepreneurialism later. But yeah, that's what I was doing. So I was doing my studies, but on the side, I was a student brand manager on campus for these titles. And my main job was raise the awareness, make it cool, and raise sales. And then I did so well, thankfully, that then I got offered a job with the agency that ran the marketing campaigns on campus, and I ended up being an account manager running those for the company. So that was, my first job. And then after that, I thought I better get some proper experience. So I went into insurance, which was very dry but fun, and you learn some great things on sales techniques and discipline. I mean, even things like you had to know the company's share price on a certain day, or you had to know what the chairman's wife's name was, or because when you were chatting and selling, you needed to be able to backfill and chat gap. It taught you the receptionist or the PA or the EA is the most important person in the building. They know everything. They know who's going to get fired before. So it was just, all this kind of experience going along. And the importance of commercialism in marketing, because there's so many marketers that are in it for a beautiful campaign or a beautiful poster or a Cannes Lions. But that's not what it's about. You're there to actually sell stuff. That's the big thing. So then, moving on from there, my biggest job and my absolute passion and love, because if you cut open my veins, it would bleed bright pink, was lastminute.com. I was so lucky going there, and I was brought up in digital, and hence understanding hopefully a little bit more about digital than a lot of marketers out there, which gives you an advantage. And then Barclaycard after that. So there was a whole bunch of stuff before food and drink. Barclaycard was tough. I wasn't much of a banker or much of a corporate person. And I sort of burnt the tie, and I wrote Yo Sushi a ransom note. So I saw, to try and stand out, and it was back to my student days, was I was always taught stand out when you're trying to get a job. So I sent them a ransom note saying, help, I've been captured by a bunch of bankers. Please let me escape to Japan, something. So, yeah, it stood out enough. I got a call. I was actually at Blur, or it's from my accent, Blur, English people say, in Hyde Park. And yeah, they said, tomorrow morning, could you dust yourself down and come in for an interview? So, you know, Food and Drink only really started, I guess that would have been like 2009, so maybe like 10 years ago. And then I had a little flirt with music again. I was at Peter Gabriel's streaming website called We7, which became Blinkbox Music when we sold it to Tesco. And then I did some time at Pret, and then started up an agency in Food and Drink because I just loved the industry so much. You know, everyone was so friendly, everyone's hospitable, funnily enough, and all the competitors actually talk to each other because we're all in the game of trying to get people to eat out and drink out. And everyone is not blind enough to think that you can just have someone eating in your restaurant every day. You know, it just doesn't happen. So there is this real better together sort of mentality where everyone works together, open sites together. They're all scheming together to just try and actually, I mean, there's healthy competition, obviously, but at the same time, there's actually a real kinship to hold the industry together. It's a lovely place.
I love that. I love it when industries and competitors cooperate. I mean, speakers do that. Speaker bureaus do it slightly less than speakers do, but we do. It's really great. I love that you wrote a ransom note. I mean, how brilliant. And also, all, you know, the brands that you're talking about, we work with a lot of the actual founders of those brands. So I know why you're excited by them, because it's in their DNA, and that DNA is spread into the brand. So it's wonderful. And I also love the fact that you mentioned that the EA or the PA is the most important person. Absolutely. And I think people forget that. They do forget that. That was a masterclass in an answer. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. So you've touched on this, I think. I wanted to ask you why, or if food and drink marketing is different from other products and services. And you've touched on it slightly because of that camaraderie and that realization. Is there anything else that makes it different, would you say?
Yeah, I think it isn't. I mean, to answer your last question though, I think one of the difficulties with food and drink marketing is actually the skill that most of the marketing teams have, and no disrespect to the marketing teams, but what tends to happen is it's someone potentially that's more junior that they can get cheaper, or they've brought through from the pubs, you know, or the restaurant. Someone did a good event once. Someone's never off their phone, so they're great at social media. Doesn't really work that way, you know. So there's that bit. I mean, there's lots of great things happening because a lot of people aren't marketing trained, so you actually get some cool stuff as well. So there's that. I think also you've potentially got a slightly older person running the show, so their experience of marketing is potentially the crayons department, the promotions department, and I got described once as, you know, a promotions jockey, and that's not what it's about. And I think the understanding holistically within all of the companies about the importance of brand and what brand means, which is so different from what marketing is. You know, brand being a promise delivered and permeates through your entire organisation, and then there's the marketing on top. And it's just, I think there's everyone's so busy that the hard thing is actually going into companies as I do and saying to them, let's market like Pret do. Let's try and be 6 months ahead, you know, 9 months ahead, you know, almost forget the small stuff for a bit and think about the big things where you can make a difference. So I think there's an awful lot of work goes into things when it maybe doesn't need to, like creating, you know, such a huge amount of work around Father's Day. You know, it's one day. You know, Mother's Day is a bit different. You've maybe got a little bit more. So I think a lot of the time everyone focuses too much on the small stuff and the tactical things. And it's, you know, yesterday's sales was down in Portsmouth, let's discount. And it's like, chill out, you know, and something I've always talk about, and probably people, if they've heard me before, are bored of me saying it, but I went to see Alex Ferguson years ago speaking, and he was wonderful, you know, and he said the reason why Manchester United were so good under his reign was we were never bothered about this Saturday's game. We were only bothered about 3 years' time. And I think a lot of the brands and the great brands that you see in our industry, it's no surprise, Wagamama, Dishoom, Hawksmoor, Nando's, there's very few of them, but they're slow and steady wins the race. They're assured. They really know how they look, sound, feel, etc. And so many people, don't concentrate on that. So, for example, if you looked at it in a decorating analogy, you should put all the duct tape up and cut in at the side and do it all properly. These guys and girls are just starting in the middle of the wall and going any which way, and it'll look like a dog's dinner. So I think discipline is actually the difference between, good marketing and bad marketing. And I think we don't have enough discipline in our industry where people are properly trained to say, let's start at market orientation. Let's actually see what the customers want. There's an awful lot of ego as well because it's operator-led and it's entrepreneur-led. It's what they want to see in the menu. It's what they think their mates would like, and or it's coming from an executive chef. And when was the last time they spoke to a customer? It frightened the life out of them, So I think, a lot of people poo-poo talking to customers and research. And of course, you don't paint by numbers, but I think it's important that you start there. How can we be relevant in people's lives? And the ones that are failing are the ones that are just banging out the same old stuff, same old dishes, resting on their old laurels. We used to be great. But also in the background, there's other stuff happening where, things like they've opened too many sites, they've not got the staff that believe, they're cutting costs to make a burger cheaper. And people know that, they notice it, So I think there's limitations. Back to your question, I think there's budget limitations. I think there's discipline limitations, but also even if the marketer is trained and wants to do it, I think you've got pressures from above that might be stopping you actually doing the best job that you can. So that's quite tough. You've got a stakeholder management job to do as well. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good things though if you look to other industries and Magpie from there. I think the retailers and e-tailers, I would be all over that. I think someone wrote to me the other day and said, who's doing it great digitally in food and drink, and they're obviously wanting to, take a look at them and see what they could use. And I was like, being honest, it's bits of within lots of areas, and you'd really need to sit and spend some time to look at it. But I would go outside the industry to actually look at best practice.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love the idea of always looking outside of your industry and taking ideas from there, taking the best ideas. That's so much great value content and advice there for anybody that's doing any kind of marketing. I love that. Now, you are absolutely passionate about digital marketing specifically. Why are you so excited about digital?
I think the biggest thing about digital marketing is it's just where the attention is. I'm a huge fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and it's his phrase really, where he talks about, he day trades attention. So if all of a sudden digital switched off and it was all on radios or shaved sheep or, whatever, then you'd move over there, So I think it's, don't be too loyal to digital. But I think the thing is, there's so much untapped potential. Now, if you look at the time that people spend on it, so at the moment, on digital, it's a day a week. People, on average, this isn't even the worst offenders, like I potentially am, and you may be, but, looking at that, you see your screen time alerts coming through, you know how much you're on there, and you've got to be, logic flows that you've got to be looking at that more and got more chance of being interrupted with something relevant than you being at the underground or you being on a bus or you reading a newspaper. You see it. How many people do you see reading the Metro now on the daily commute versus just being on their phone? And there's so many ways. This is the thing, when people talk digital, they think about just social. But, that's 1/100th of it. There's mobile advertising, there's contextual search, there's, SEO, PPC. And the thing, when I go out and see companies as well, they don't have a search engine optimization strategy, let alone even doing it. So they build a website, they'll potentially spend anything from 10 grand because their brother does it in his bedroom and they think it's a good idea, all the way to 70 grand, 100 grand, whatever. But they buy a Ferrari potentially, or a Skoda or something not so great, and then they don't put any petrol in it, and they've not got any money to service it, and I just don't understand. So the thing is, I went to see the chap that started Twitter, and he was doing a great speech at Bizstone, and he said, basically, if he had his time again, he would spend as little as he could on the thing and as much as he could amplifying the thing. So let's say you've got 10 million, and a lot of people don't have 10 million pounds, but let's say as an arbitrary figure, but 10 million pounds, spend $1 million on the thing, and then spend the 9, spend 10 times the amount promoting that, no matter what channel you choose. That's the way to go. So I think, again, you go out to people and they've not even got a Facebook pixel in their website, which will then help them link with Facebook to see when people have been on their website, then they can hit them up again with an ad. Then the other one is, the classic at the moment, is people are boosting posts on Facebook, which is the easiest, laziest thing to do. You just hit a button, it boosts a post. But then you say to them, and it's not very targeted, it's kind of okay, but the problem is it doesn't actually get seen that much. So you talk to them as well, you say, what's your budget for that? And they say, I'm putting a fiver on it. Like they're doing the Grand National for fun, and you're just thinking, what are you doing? So, the best advice is go into the back end of Facebook, and there's this wonderful picture, like a JPEG. If you go into Google Images and you say Facebook Business Manager or Facebook targeting, and honestly, it's like a straw. It's so thin and long, and you have to zoom into it. But all of the things that you can do in the back end of Facebook Business, for example, I've just been to Austin, Texas. So if I was a smart barbecue brand, I would know that my phone has just been in Austin, and I could serve up an ad that says, missing the taste of Austin, come and get it here, whatever's barbecue company. It knows that your phone's been there. It knows what areas you've been in. It knows who you're close to. It knows what your wages are. It knows how many children you've got. As soon as you say in a relationship to engaged to marriage, you'll see your entire newsfeed change. It'll all be, not to be sexist, but if it's a woman in the main, it is sexist. There's be wedding dresses and tanning and waxing and sculpting and honeymoons will be coming in and all these things. So it's just taking yourself out of food and drink, putting yourself in the customer segment and saying, what are our most profitable customer segments? And where, if it is tourists and they're all coming from Sweden, then target Swedish people with Swedish phones and prep them on the way over so that you're a must visit. But it's not all digital, but as I say, I think you need to get that licked, because if you've got digital licked, there is an automation point where it will just run, it will just run it in the main. And the other thing is, so much about content. People put up one ad and sort of do that. Again, it can't be the same ad that I'm seeing, that you're seeing, that someone else is seeing. You've really got to look at the person, make that the punchline, and then write the joke and make it super contextual to that. So unless you've really, really, really uncovered that and dug deep into digital, and people are wasting their time on A-boards, posters outside the restaurant, it just doesn't really make sense to me.
No, again, fascinating answer, really deep dive there. And I think it keeps coming back, and you keep saying it keeps coming back to really understanding the customer. And if you don't understand the customer, you're wasting energy, time, everything. It's just a total waste of time. And I think people do skip that bit of really getting into the head of the customer, saying, what's going on in your world. You mentioned automation. So I'm fascinated by automation because obviously if you can get it right, it makes your life a lot easier. But I mean, I don't know, is there good automation and bad automation in digital, would you say?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing really, again, with marketing and with technology and all that's just to try and not be too personal about it. Although it frightens the life out of me at times, and I'm sure other people, it is then saying, well, would it resonate with the target customer? So if your target customer is potentially a laggard who is 55, 60 and, doesn't like technology, then I would maybe not put that as a priority. I think one of the most helpful things about automation, and again, it's defining what automation means to you, but there's so many efficiencies, for example. So there's great automation, like there's an amazing menu piece of tech called 10 Kites, and they're using that across like big chains, for example. So what happens is, instead of someone saying, oh, the ABV on a beer is wrong, or, oh, we forgot to say that's got crustaceans in it from a diet point of view or whatever, and then you've got to update 80 different places. You go to this one sort of system portal, and you just type it all in, and you make one change, press a button, and you've already set it up to talk to everything. And that's including your printer to print the reprint, that's your digital screens, that's all of your digital menus, and it's going so far as they're actually owning the menu pages in some of the biggest national chains that we've got. So there's no hassle, so it means there's always proper information. And it means that the risk of someone being ill or unfortunately dying or anything like that is taken away, because everything's always accurate. So, I mean, that's an automation point. There's other automation points which are chatbots and on the social side of things, or websites or whatever. Again, if there's anything that you can do, try and make it kind of human as well. But if there's anything that you can do as a business to still make the customer journey brilliant, but take away 80% of your pain and costs and all these things. I mean, it used to be at lastminute.com, for example, we had discussions, they didn't really happen, but we had discussions about, can we hide the phone number 7 pages deep so that no one called? Because cost per call was a lot of money, and it's why people go out of business. Thomas Cook and all these things. So I think, from that perspective, I think there's a kind of automation smarts thing. So I think there's an efficiency, I think there's a smarts, and then I think there is a marketing side of things where it's too much to do manually, where every single search that's going on for every single keyword, so I think there's plugging in that customer life journey, or you want to hit someone up 8 times before action happens. You want contextual ads coming to them, and also email. So there's almost an acquisition point, there's a smarts point, and then there's a efficiency point. So it depends. I'm sure there's more, but that's before we even get into voice and things like that. So I'm exploring that at the moment. It's really exciting. I'm hooking up with a guy called Geraint John, and he's kind of positioned himself as the voice for voice guy. He's out in New York at the moment at a conference thing. So again, this is all new. We've barely scratched the surface. Where, I mean, obviously we all know how to talk and stuff, but the user interface, the user experience, how we'll ask for things, accents, where it will take you, what will happen. So, for example, I was listening to a talk the other day, and they were saying people are going to order jeans, let's say, just on Amazon Alexa. So you'll just say, hey, can I get some jeans? Or let's say it's gin or whatever. So when you're doing your weekly shop, and let's say it's gin or it's toothpaste, or are you going to ask for Hendrick's gin? Are you going to let Amazon choose a gin? So what will have happened in the back end is that, let's say Diageo or one of these spirits makers will have paid Amazon to be the preferred option. So if you don't say an option, it'll do that. Or is Amazon's game bigger, where it's just going to send you the Amazon Basics range of gin, which will be in a brown paper bag or whatever. So, there's all these different things going on, and, it's mind-bending. But I think back to skill and all that stuff of marketers in general, so many marketers have just drawn a line at email marketing, and they've not went any further. And the amount of panels that I've been on, speeches I've heard, and they say, oh, and it's a CMO getting 250 grand a year, by the way. Oh, I don't do that. I hire people that are 20 years old to do that. And it's like, come on, you should be ashamed of yourself. So if you call yourself a marketer, you've got to understand this stuff. You've just got to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. High five there. I love that. So I love the fact that you focused on voice there as well at the end, because I do think there's a huge future there. I mean, I get very frustrated with my voice recognition systems because sometimes I scream at them because they don't get it right. So they've got a long way to go. But when they do, it's wonderful. It's so much easier.
Mm.
Now, you mentioned, that marketers think they understand marketing and they stop learning. You're back at school. You're doing the
Yes.
MBA. Tell me
Mhm.
about that, because your knowledge is huge. So,
Well, I think, there's always a humble point, which is, always, don't take yourself for granted or too seriously or whatever. I think there's always been a chip in my shoulder, I think, or being Scottish, probably a bag of chips or Glasgow salad, as they call it. But basically, I've always had this itch to scratch, which is, I was never classically trained properly. I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge or one of the great schools. I went to a good school. It was good enough. It was in Paisley, in University of Paisley, which they threw a lot of money at because we ended up with people from Harvard teaching us and all these things. But I just was wondering, as a solo entrepreneur as well, if that's not too big a word, it's just like, who's coaching me? I don't really have a mentor. I mean, I've got Robert Bean, who's my great brand mentor, but that's kind of in one direction. Um, who am I learning from? And, who am I taking the time to learn from? And it was always a part of me as well that bugged me slightly, that I never did the Procter & Gamble or the Unilever graduate scheme where they teach you brilliance, where they teach you a process. It's almost like a golf swing. If you are going up to the ball, you're addressing the ball, you're standing properly, you're doing all this stuff. You go through a ritual for every marketing thing that you're doing. And I was a little bit more street fighting, where I was like, oh, I'll go over here and I'll go over there and I'll do that. And I have got it plugged together, but I just wanted to make sure I had it plugged together. So there was this wonderful course that Marketing Week are running. So it's a marketing professor called Mark Ritson. And Mark's actually completed LinkedIn, if that's a phrase. So he's got too many connections now. It won't let him have any more, which is a bit of a strange place to be. It's almost like playing Nintendo or Sega or something. So he's completed it. Or what's the phrase, completed it, mate? People say these days. So I did a podcast with him, and he just kind of really inspired me, through speaking with him. And I just thought, there's lots I can learn from this man. And I've started using it already, for all the money it was. I mean, for education, it was like £1,200 or something, to be able to do a 12-week MBA course or just the marketing strand. And that's basically coming from, I think it's maybe Stanford or one. He's taught all these fancy schools, and he's just taken that slice, and he does it through video, and he does it through some papers that you need to read. I'm terrible at reading. Like, I've got no attention span. So I'm forcing myself to try and do that. I'm trying to hack ways that maybe I could get it read out to me, or I'm working on that. But I'm watching the videos. It's great. I had an 11-hour flight there, so I got to see some of those. And I'm just going to Glasgow after this podcast, so I'll get to watch some on the train as well. So the exam's in a few weeks' time. So
we'll have to do an update then and find out how you've gone. But listen, I think it's great. Continual learning is really important. I do a lot of online courses myself, and I encourage my speakers to keep learning. I think it's vital. I think podcasts are a wonderful way to learn. Now, listen, we've really run out of time. I could talk to you forever, but so let me just ask you a couple of questions about speaking, really. Mm-hmm. So, how did you get into speaking? And two, what are you speaking about when you're invited to speak?
Yeah, so long story, but very briefly, it was at university. We had this wonderful lady called Meg, and Meg was a real hard case from a really dodgy bit in Paisley. So yeah, she'd if she hadn't become a lecturer, she'd maybe be out stabbing you. So she was really amazing and inspiring. And she, on day one, got us to stand up in front of everyone, and you had couple of minutes, whatever it was, to say what you did during the summer holidays. And there was maybe 200 odd people that were on my course, and that forced you into doing it. So people were crying. There was, people wanted to be sick, and you know, people were freaked out because they'd never done this before, and it's strangers, you've just started the course. So we did it all, and then she said, "Did you like that?" And everyone was like, "Not really." And she said, "Okay, well, you're going to be doing that every day now for 4 years." Every week. So it was like, okay. So that was us. And so you were just forced into it. And then going on from that, it just became part of my job. You know, if you're doing marketing, you have to present all the time and to scary people. And especially if you're agency side, you're pitching and you've got to be good. And I think it's always just to try and make it human and entertaining. And then one of the best things I did was I went on a stand-up comedy course, and it wasn't to be funny or anything. It was just to understand story arcing, callbacks, mic technique, stuff like that. So that was really wonderful. And then after that, I was really lucky when I went into the food and drink industry. It was a little bit like going to church now, where if you're a young person, all the old people are going, you know, like vampires, like, oh, get them in, you know, get them to be a believer and all that. And it was a little bit like that with food and drink. It was like, an outsider, you know, what does he know? And obviously I came from digital. So they were all like, wonder what he's got to say. So I got a few gigs early, and then I just worked so hard to make them like a stand-up routine in terms of hitting your mark, hitting the point, making it interesting. And I had an old boss as well called Simon Thompson, and he really blew my mind in terms of the way that he presented with the slides. So, you know, my style now is I've got a lot of GIFs going on, a lot of kind of fun stuff while I'm speaking, and there was never like lots of text. So the worst thing you can do is, I'm not going to read through all this, and then they do, and it's rotten, you know. So I think the thing is, entertain the audience there and then speak from the heart here, maybe with a few key points, really helps. So there's that, and then, you know, thanks to you guys as well, you know, I've had a few big ones. Got the Ukraine soon, which is going to be one of the biggest, I think. So that's kind of scary, and all the rest of it. You know, can't say I'm not concerned about the translator and all these things. But one of the other things that happened that was great was at Yo Sushi. I was only joined like 6 weeks. I got sent to Tokyo, and I think I was on stage for about 3.5 hours. And I had to speak, and then I had to also be on panels and then interviewed. And there was a translator there. There was TV channels there. So I think just do really big, scary things and say yes to everything as much as you can in the early days, just to get your name known. And then from there, you can switch it from being maybe a free or business development thing into then you earning your stripes to actually be able to charge for it. But, you know, it's not an easy thing. It's a hell of a lot of hard work. And you've got to have something to say. I think you've got to have a personal brand as well. And I think you've got to have a really strong style that you'll be remembered. So that's what I try and work on.
Well, listen, Mark, there's no danger of you not being remembered. And thank you for saying yes to being a guest on the podcast. Thank
Pleasure.
you.